Hello and welcome to another episode of Geekgo. Today we're going to talk about Kamen Rider Climax Heroes. Super Climax Heroes. Climax Heroes, how have you evolved? Every year there's a new Climax Heroes and, well, it's not technically new because it's just a game that builds upon the other versions. The original Climax Heroes was first released on the PS2 in August in 2009 to, coincide with the Kamen Rider Decade TV series. In the first version of the PS2, you would play as Kamen Rider Decade going through a story mode fighting all the 9 previous Heisei riders. And of course unlocking them and being able to use them to fight with your friends or the CPU. It was basically just another Kamen Rider fighting game that was released on the PlayStation 2. Before that there was Kabuto, Hibiki, Faiz, Blade, that was on PlayStation 1, that was Kamen Rider Kuga and Agito. One of the unique characters to the game was called Kamen Rider Dark Decade, which was pretty much a dark coloured palette swap of, well, normal Decade. Even his final form was still back to the original colours, so sounds cool but not really. Later that year in December, of course releasing it for Christmas, was Climax Heroes Double. This game was pretty much a port of Decade from the PS2 to the Wii. It had the extra character Double and of course a few extra NPC characters that you can unlock. This included monsters like the Worms, or T-Rex or Magma Dopants from Kamen Rider Double. The single player campaign was pretty much very similar to the original game. You just click through stages and trying to beat a monster in a set amount of time. The only downside to this is when I played it, I felt like the Dopants were way overpowered and I just couldn't beat it. Maybe I sucked at the game, maybe. But it is a fact that all the, well, monster characters in the game, they don't have any final super moves, so instead they have stronger power normal moves. I can also swear that I felt the controls were just all over the place and just weren't that well stable and steady yet. So when I first got it, just to play with other friends, I got a 100% save file and, well, I had fun with other people. Then of course, slightly earlier in the same year, Kamen Rider Dragon Knight for the Wii was released in the United States. This game is, of course, well, Climax Heroes, just with only Dragon Knight characters. It recycles the music and stages and even certain character models like Ryuki that's already in the game. So it's just really odd to hear Kuga's stage music when you're playing Dragon Knight. And of course the controls are slightly different to, accommodate the advent cards and all that. And whether or not you like Dragon Knight or not, or any other United States adaptations of Japanese tokusatsu TV franchises, having this Dragon Knight game made meant that, well, the Japanese developers didn't have to remake all those Japanese characters. So when the next Climax Heroes came out, they just ported all the character models and all the character moves back into Climax Heroes O's, which meant that Kamen Rider fans got every single Ryuki rider. Although we're still missing the Decade Ryuki rider, which is Abyss. Climax Heroes O's was released in December 2010 and of course had all these extra Ryuki riders. And this made a huge difference to the game, because not only are you playing, well, primary riders anymore, you're getting all these extra new riders, and it was cool. All of a sudden the game was transformed from a yearly rider fighting game into a full ensemble Kamen Rider fighting game, and people, well, expected to have more and more riders down the line. And we kinda got just that. When Kamen Rider Climax Heroes 4 came out the next year, we also got, well, a lot more extra riders. So adding one new character every year just wasn't good enough anymore. Bandai knew it had to add a lot more, so when 4s came out, we got some Shoha riders like Kamen Rider Ichigo, Nigo, Fifri, Black, and even Shadow Moon. And we also got a few extra secondary riders like Ibuki, and Neo Deno that was a movie exclusive. All these additions are major upsides. The only downside to these games are that O's had an atrocious single player campaign where the only way to unlock a new rider was to go through this weird map system by taking a new rider with you in the campaign. Once you reach the end of that map, you unlock that certain rider. However, this map system was completely slow, took ages to click through all the menus, and just wasn't worth it. 4's improved this by just making you being able to select any mission you want, unlocking missions on the way, and also automatically unlocking any new riders. There's just one huge complaint here. Why does Amazon still sound like a bloody retard? Look, just look at the original Amazon. Does he sound weird? Yes. But does he sound like a retard? No. The voice actor they got couldn't even get the sound right. And then we just listen to it. He goes off pitch. He's like, Amazon. What the hell? And it isn't just this game, it seems like every new reincarnation of Kamen Rider Amazon sounds like a bloody retard. Bandai, Toei, fix it! There is a way for fans to fix this. This game uses the same model system and sound effects files as Super Smash Bros. And because there's so many fan mods and tools made for Super Smash Bros., you can kind of use the same tools to extract the same audio files and stick them back in. Some people have actually converted all the sound files from the previous Climax Heroes games, which means you can take those files and make your own animation and use those sounds for, you know, any Kamen Rider fan projects. We just need to get hold of Kamen Rider DN's K-Touch sound. That would be awesome. And now we've reached Super Climax Heroes, which was released this year, November 2012. Again, many new riders are added this time to the game, including lots of fan favourites like double secondary riders like Kamen Rider Skull and Eternal. Not to mention a lot of secondary riders like Kamen Rider Gills, other Hibiki riders, other Kabuto riders, and Blade riders. So the story mode here has changed again. In this time, Heroes mode, the layout is pretty similar to the Force campaign. Instead of picking a rider to play the missions of a certain rider, you pick a location and do the missions there. Every time you complete a mission, you unlock new characters, new styles, new modes, new figurines, which are just pretty much displays of the riders, and you get coins. This currency is used to upgrade your rider's abilities in the campaign mode only, and does not affect the multiplayer character stats. Which is good because if certain characters overpowered in a multiplayer game, that would terribly unbalance the whole multiplayer experience. In the campaign mode, even if you lose, you still get 1000 gold, so you know, if you keep losing because you can't beat a certain level, you can still eventually beat it because you're unlocking these coins to power up a certain character. The missions are, well, gone are the old Dynasty Warrior like corridor-ish missions where you run around and just beating up monsters. All that's left are fighting other riders. You don't even get to fight other enemies in this fighting mode either. The models of the old enemies are still there, but you can only see them in the gallery mode. The single player campaign ranges from easy to hard, and when I say hard, the last few missions do get ridiculously difficult. Not only are you fighting against a timer, but the enemy has, well, extra health and extra power. Even if you choose the easy difficulty setting, it's still hard to beat. And I think this is a good thing. For any fighting game, of course you're gonna reach harder levels at the end. And this game's no exception. And this game also uses that really annoying cheat system. Same with Marvel vs. Capcom games. When you reach the end boss is overly powered, has way more health and way more damage against you. And yes, that's unfair, but what do you expect? It's the last level, it's gonna be hard. The only annoying thing is one of the hardest levels is, well, Kamen Rider Force and Meteor. And as all good Kamen Rider fans know, these guys would never be that difficult to beat. Ever. Although I am pleased that one of the final bosses is Kamen Rider Ichigo on his own, who kicks ass. And the other one is Kamen Rider Eternal, which is a super cool, awesome bad guy. One last thing I want to point out with the single player campaign is that when the missions unlock, the missions get slotted into the middle of the list. It's not like you're unlocking new missions and they appear at the bottom of the list, they sort of randomly place, and I don't understand why this is. It doesn't affect the gameplay at all to me because I can't read a single text of Japanese, so I don't know what story is going on. But I can't help but feel it's a bit odd that these missions are placed in to me, a random order. Maybe they're chronologically ordered? I don't know. The single player campaign takes about 5 to 6 or 7 hours to beat, but really everything here is just, well, repetition. There's a limited amount of stages. A few of the stages are new, but the rest are recycled from the older Climax Heroes games, and you're just fighting the same riders over and over again. For the most part, you can't choose which rider to go into the mission, but sometimes you get to pick which rider to fight. The single player campaign gets tedious really quickly because you're only doing it just so you can unlock other characters to play in the multiplayer game with your friends. This is the same downside as people complain about, say, Smash Bros. Or any other fighting game where you have to unlock characters by playing the single player campaign or single player missions. Because the whole point of a fighting game is to play with other people, but if you've been playing it so much to unlock all these characters, you're going to be much better than your friends. So if you are going to play with other people, best bet is to either download a 100% character unlock, or make sure you don't get too good and kick their asses too quickly and then destroy all the fun. Next you have arcade mode, which, dear god, is just a single player thing again. The only point to play this mode is that you haven't played this game for a while and you just want to play through a few stages getting harder and harder. It's just the same stages against the rider you picked all over again. It's just boring. I wouldn't complain so much if the story mode was actually more like a story mode, because as is right now, the story mode and arcade mode pretty much feel like they're just overlapping each other. Once I finished the story mode, playing all these levels over and over again, I had pretty much zero to no interest playing the arcade mode. Next we have versus CPU, which is pretty much just arcade mode but versus one level. Again, this makes arcade mode pretty much redundant. Next we have the 2-player mode, which, well, is the main attraction. Once you've unlocked all the characters, there are a huge amount of characters, and certain characters have more than one form. For example, O's and 4's have so many forms. I spent more time playing multiplayer than the single player campaign. It was pretty much just me and my brother playing different characters over and over again until we got bored after 5 hours. This game is so much fun when you're playing with other people. After all, a fighting game is to fight with other people, and let me tell you, this game's mechanics have been refined over all the different alterations. Gone are the horrible spanning of keep pressing the ultimate move, and gone are the ridiculously unbalanced characters. All the characters don't have super forms, pretty much have a charge up ability which gives them the same attack power as a super form would. Every single character now has a finisher move, and certain slow walking characters have been sped up a little bit. There are a few characters which still have unfair spammy moves. For example, Kamen Rider Axel's Rider Arts is doing a huge shockwave which stuns enemies around him. Kamen Rider Wizard has this binding option which ties people so they can't move. And Kamen Rider Linking has this freezing option which stops people from moving as well. Yes, you can dodge these attacks, but up to a certain point you're still going to get hit and lose a lot of health. All of the Kabuto characters still have their clock up modes, which, while at first seems unfair, the Kabuto characters do deal less damage when they're in clock up mode. But these are still really annoying when it happens, but what can you do? That's what Kamen Rider Kabuto's powers are. He speeds up. Not putting it in there would be blasphemy. Next thing about this game is that the fighting mechanics have been completely overhauled. Yes, the riders still do their finishers and still have the same moves, but the game is no longer set on a 2D plane. In the previous versions, one would be fighting in this 2D plane and using the nunchuck to sort of dodge forwards and backwards, similar to sort of older Street Fighter 3D games. But now the fighting plane has been opened up and your character can run all over the stage. At first I didn't like this idea and wished they had an option to switch back to the original 2D mode, which still would be a good idea to have that option. But after playing the game for a while, I appreciate this new mode. It's a good way to make the game feel fresh again. The stages are still set within the limits in sort of square boxes, but now you have free roam over the area. The game feels more like a fight scene from the TV series. The game also implements this new thing called Rider Arts, which certain characters have. Once triggered successfully, your rider goes into this cinematic cutscene that is much quicker than the finisher move, and performs an attack that's similar to the style that it was filmed in the original TV series. The only annoying one is one from Kamen Rider Skull, where he shoots a blaster and just stands there looking silly. The other one is Kamen Rider Force's Meteor, where Meteor goes into this weird ball thing and flies around. These two other Rider Arts are kinda annoying because they slow the fighting down completely. But the rest of the Rider Arts work fine. In fact, they make the game more immersing because you're seeing quick cutscenes of the show that you like so much. After all, Japanese superhero shows are all about signature moves and combat styles. One final thing to note about the fighting is that Kamen Rider Wizard's finisher move is way too long, and really needs to be cut down for the next release. The problem is, while finisher moves are, well, cool and deal a lot of damage, you don't want to watch them